Welcome to Story Tales. Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Martin Knox gripped the steering wheel of his truck, knuckles white after the 10-hour drive back to Oak Ridge Estates. His muscles ached, but satisfaction ran deep after completing the hurricane relief housing project he'd volunteered for. Rain pelted the windshield as he turned into the driveway of the colonial-style home he shared with Lainey. Something felt off. No lights welcomed him. No silhouette of his wife appeared in the bay window, where she typically waited when he was due home, especially for Thanksgiving weekend. Strange, he muttered, killing the engine. He grabbed his duffel bag from the passenger seat and jogged through the rain to the covered porch. The key turned in the lock with a hollow click. The house felt cold, not just in temperature. "Lainey," Martin called, flicking on the entryway light. His voice echoed through the space. "I made good time on the drive. Got here early." Silence answered him. He moved further into the house, setting his bag down and shaking rainwater from his jacket. A faint creak from the sitting room caught his attention. Martin tensed, reaching for the flashlight in his pocket, a habit from growing up in a neighborhood where unexpected sounds meant trouble. "Who's there?" he demanded. The rhythmic creak continued. Martin stepped into the sitting room and froze. A single lamp cast long shadows across the hardwood floor. In his grandfather's antique rocking chair sat Arden Holloway, his mother-in-law, rocking slowly back and forth. She wore an immaculate gray pantsuit, not a wrinkle visible despite the late hour. "Arden." Martin didn't bother hiding his surprise. "What are you doing here? Where's Lainey?" Arden's thin lips curved into what might have been a smile on anyone else. On her, it looked like a crack in porcelain. She gestured to the coffee table with a bony hand. A folded piece of paper sat atop the polished wood. "Your wife left you a note," she said, voice dry as autumn leaves. Martin's stomach tightened as he picked up the paper. He recognized Lainey's looping handwriting immediately. "Gone on a cruise with my ex. You'll stay home and take care of stepmom. She needs you. No love. No sorry. No explanation." Martin read it twice, then a third time, each word hammering into him. He kept his face neutral, years of negotiating construction contracts serving him well now. He wouldn't give Arden the satisfaction of seeing him crack. "When did she leave?" he asked, carefully folding the note and sliding it into his pocket. "Yesterday morning," Arden said, the rocking never ceasing. "She packed quite efficiently for someone usually so indecisive." Martin nodded once, processing. "And she asked you to stay here?" "She insisted I needed looking after." Arden's voice dripped with amusement. "Apparently you're to be my caretaker while she's away." "Right." Martin's tone revealed nothing of the rage building beneath his skin. "Have you eaten? I can make something." "No need. I ordered delivery earlier. There's nothing in the refrigerator anyway." Lainey cleaned it out. Said food would spoil while she was gone. Martin turned away, moving toward the kitchen. "I'll check what we have." The refrigerator stood nearly empty when he yanked it open, a half-empty bottle of white wine, condiments, and a single apple. Martin gripped the refrigerator door hard enough that his fingers left marks on the stainless steel. His jaw clenched so tight it ached. That MYX. Not even his name. Like I'm supposed to know which one. But he did know. Clint Merrow, the smooth-talking bastard who had kept popping up at neighborhood gatherings over the past 6 months. Always with that shit-eating grin when he shook Martin's hand. Martin closed the refrigerator with controlled gentleness. He wouldn't slam it. He wouldn't punch the wall. He'd learned control early, growing up with a drunk for a father. Emotions were weakness. Action was strength. From the sitting room, Arden's rocking chair continued its rhythmic creak, like a clock counting down to something. Morning light filtered through the kitchen blinds as Martin made coffee with the supplies he'd picked up last night from the 24-hour market. He hadn't spent the night reviewing bank statements and emails on his laptop while sitting at the kitchen counter. The glow of the screen had been the only light in the darkness as he pieced together the past few months of his life, looking for signs he'd missed. "You're an early riser." Arden stood in the doorway, already dressed in another expensive outfit, this one navy blue with gold buttons that probably cost more than most people's weekly salary. She looked like she'd been awake for hours, not a hair out of place. "Always have been," Martin replied, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. Cream? Sugar? Black? Arden smirked, one eyebrow raised. Shall we begin? Martin handed her a mug. Begin what? The unpleasant conversation you've been avoiding. Arden took the coffee and settled at the kitchen island. The one where I tell you they've been planning this for months, and you tell me how you're going to fix it. Martin leaned against the counter, watching her over the rim of his mug. Planning what exactly? Don't play dumb, Martin. It doesn't suit a man of your limited background but undeniable intelligence. Arden took a careful sip. My stepdaughter and her paramour. Their little escape. You knew. Of course I knew. Lainey tells me everything, eventually. Usually when she needs something. Arden's eyes, sharp as flint, studied him. What I didn't know was how far they'd gone with your money. Martin kept his expression neutral. And how far is that? That's what you'll need to figure out. Arden smiled like a cat with feathers on its whiskers. Though I suspect you spent the night doing exactly that. Martin set his mug down. Why are you really here, Arden? You hate this house. You've called it quaint too many times for me to believe you suddenly want to spend Thanksgiving here. Perhaps I wanted a front row seat. Arden traced the rim of her mug with one perfectly manicured finger. To see how a man like you handles betrayal. A man like me, self-made, determined, the type who builds something from nothing. Her smile thinned. The type who burns it all down rather than let someone else have it. Martin didn't respond immediately. He refilled his coffee instead, taking his time. You're right about one thing. I don't like playing dumb. He pulled his phone from his pocket, opened his banking app, and slid it across the counter to her. Arden glanced down, and for the first time, her composure slipped. That's $250,000 transferred 3 days ago. Martin finished for her. Wire transfer to an offshore account. Lainey's signature on the authorization, but not mine. He took the phone back. That's forgery. She's your wife. That doesn't give her the right to steal from me. Arden recovered quickly, straightening her already perfect posture. What are you going to do about it? Call the police on your wife? Create a scandal? I'm going to play along, Martin said, his voice level. For now, play along with what? Your game. Whatever it is. Martin drained his coffee and set the mug in the sink with a soft clink. I'm going to shower and head out. Got some business to take care of. Business on Thanksgiving Day? Everything's closed. Not everything. Martin moved toward the doorway, then paused. Make yourself at home, Arden. We're family, after all. The word family twisted in his mouth like barbed wire. Upstairs, Martin entered the master bedroom and surveyed the damage in daylight. Lainey's closet stood half empty, the expensive clothes he'd bought her still hanging, while the designer items she'd insisted on purchasing herself were gone. The lingerie drawer cleared out. The jewelry box missing the tennis bracelet he'd given her for their anniversary, but the engagement ring he'd saved 3 years to buy remained, tossed carelessly on the dresser like a trinket from a gumball machine in the bathroom. Her cosmetics were cleared out in patches. Expensive night creams gone, drugstore items left behind. The pattern was clear. Take the valuable, leave the replaceable. Just like Martin himself, he stripped and stepped into the shower, letting scalding water run over his body. Under the spray, he allowed himself exactly 30 seconds of visible reaction. His face contorted in rage, fists clenched so tight that his nails cut into his palms. His body shook with the force of his controlled breath, 30 seconds. Then nothing. Water streamed down his expressionless face as he methodically washed away the evidence of his momentary weakness. By the time he stepped out and wiped steam from the mirror, the mask was firmly back in place. He had work to do. Martin spent the day downtown, meeting with his lawyer and his financial advisor. Both expressed concern about the timing. Thanksgiving Day wasn't ideal for emergency consultations, but Martin had built enough goodwill over the years that neither refused him. By late afternoon, he'd initiated the process to freeze joint accounts and flag suspicious transactions. Not enough to cause immediate problems, but groundwork for what would come next. Night had fallen by the time he returned. The house glowed with light, and the smell of roasting turkey greeted him at the door. Martin paused on the threshold, momentarily disoriented by the holiday atmosphere. Don't stand there gawking, Arden called from the kitchen. I've made dinner. Martin followed her voice to find the kitchen transformed. A small turkey sat cooling on the counter, alongside mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, and cranberry sauce. Two place settings waited at the dining table, complete with cloth napkins and wine glasses. "You cooked." Martin couldn't hide his surprise. "I ordered," Arden corrected, removing an apron that looked suspiciously like it had never been used before. "From that catering company downtown. They do emergency holiday meals for people like us, victims of poor planning or," her lips quirked, "unexpected abandonment. Thoughtful of you. Survival instinct." Arden gestured to the table. "Sit. I've opened a bottle of Cabernet from your collection. Quite nice, actually. I'm surprised Lainey didn't take it. Too heavy to pack, probably." Martin sat, watching as Arden brought the food to the table with unexpected competence. "Probably thought she could buy better with your money," Arden agreed, filling his wine glass generously before her own. They ate in silence for several minutes. The food was good professional, but tasteless in Martin's mouth. He washed each bite down with wine, aware that Arden kept refilling his glass while barely touching her own. "You're trying to get me drunk," he observed after his third glass. "Is it working?" Arden's eyes glittered in the candlelight. "Not really. Pity. Men tend to be more malleable after a few drinks." Martin set down his fork. "What do you want, Arden?" "Direct. I've always appreciated that about you." She took a small sip of wine. "I want what's mine." "Which is?" "This house, for starters." Arden waved a hand at their surroundings. "Lainey's inheritance from her father. My husband paid for the down payment. She may have run off, but I still have rights." Martin almost laughed. "The down payment was 20%. I've paid the mortgage for 5 years. Your claim wouldn't hold up in court." "Perhaps not. But scandals are so messy, aren't they? A respected businessman whose wife runs off with another man, taking his money. People talk. Let them." Arden's expression hardened. "You're not understanding me, Martin. I'm offering you a deal. I don't make deals with people who try to manipulate me." Martin pushed his plate away. "Tell me the truth. Where are they really?" Arden stared at him for a long moment, then reached for the wine bottle and poured herself a generous glass. She drained half of it in one swallow. "There is no cruise," she admitted, voice slightly slurred for the first time. "That was a convenient fiction. They flew to the Cayman Islands. Clint has connections there. Banking connections." The confirmation hit Martin like a physical blow, but he kept his expression neutral. "And the money? What do you think?" "They're setting up accounts, moving assets, preparing for a new life together." Arden laughed, a bitter sound. "My stepdaughter has always had expensive taste and poor judgment. But this time, she's gone too far even for me." "You don't approve of Clint?" "Please." Arden's disgust seemed genuine. "The man is a parasite, but he's a useful parasite to her at the moment." "And to you?" Martin asked quietly. Arden's eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" "I'm not blind, Arden. I've seen how you look at him at family gatherings. How you always manage to be in the same conversation circle. How you touch his arm when you laugh at his jokes." Color flooded Arden's cheeks. "You're imagining things." "Am I?" Martin leaned forward. "Or is there more to this story than a runaway wife and her lover?" Arden's hand trembled slightly as she set down her wine glass. "You should accept what's happened and move on, Martin. File for divorce. Split the assets. Get on with your life. Is that what you expected me to do? Accept it and move on? It would be the sensible thing." Martin stood, gathering their plates. "I've never been accused of being sensible, Arden. Not when it comes to disloyalty." "What does that mean?" A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. "It means I'm going to clean up these dishes, and then I'm going to bed. It's been a long day." Martin's voice was pleasant, conversational. Nothing in his tone betrayed the ice forming in his veins. "You should get some rest, too. You look tired, Martin." "Good night, Arden." He took the dishes to the kitchen, methodically rinsing and loading them into the dishwasher while his mind raced. When he finished, he climbed the stairs to the guest bedroom, unwilling to sleep in the bed he'd shared with Lainey. Sleep eluded Martin. Around midnight, he gave up trying and returned to the master bedroom. The house was silent. Arden had retreated to the guest suite on the other side of the second floor. Martin stood in the center of the bedroom, looking at the space he'd shared with his wife for 5 years. Every inch of it felt contaminated now. From the California king bed they'd chosen together to the reading nook by the window, where Laney claimed to read, but really just scrolled through social media. His gaze landed on their wedding photo on the dresser. He crossed the room and picked it up, studying Laney's face. She looked genuinely happy that day, her smile radiant as she gazed up at him. Had it all been an act? Had she ever loved him at all? The frame felt unnaturally heavy in his hands. He turned it over, remembering what lay hidden on the back. The wood was smooth except for a small panel that slid aside to reveal words carved into the interior wood. To my rock, my safety, my forever. I choose you every day. L. Martin had found it accidentally a week after their wedding, when he was hanging the photo. Laney had blushed when he discovered it, claiming it was too mushy to say out loud. But she wanted him to know. Now the words mocked him. With deliberate calm, Martin gripped the frame in both hands and brought it down hard against the edge of the dresser. The glass shattered, shards spilling across the hardwood floor. He pried the backing away, separating the photo from the frame, and tore the picture in half, then quarters, then smaller still, until Laney's smiling face was confetti. He kept the wooden frame with its hidden message. Evidence of a lie. Martin moved to the closet and pulled out a metal lockbox from the back shelf. Inside were the items he considered essential. His mother's wedding ring, the only thing of value she'd owned, the deed to his first house, his grandfather's pocket watch, and an old flip phone that couldn't be traced to him. He added the broken frame to the box. Removing the flip phone, he powered it on and dialed a number from memory. It rang 4 times before a gruff voice answered. "Do you know what time it is?" "Yeah." "Sorry, Wyatt." A pause, then Martin. "What's wrong?" "I need your help." Martin's voice remained steady. "Can you meet me tomorrow?" "Not my place." "The usual spot." "Yeah, noon." "I'll be there." No questions, no hesitation. This was why Wyatt Langston had been Martin's friend for 20 years. "You okay?" "No, but I will be." Martin ended the call and returned the phone to the lockbox. He spent the next hour cleaning up the broken glass, methodically picking up every shard and sliver. When the floor was spotless, he gathered the torn photo pieces and carried them downstairs to the fireplace in the study. The kindling caught quickly. Martin watched as the fragments of his wedding photo curled and blackened, his face impassive in the flickering light. He felt nothing but cold purpose as the last piece turned to ASH.I in the glow of the dying embers. Martin made his vow. No mercy, no forgiveness, only justice, his kind of justice. The people who betrayed him would pay. Not quickly, not in anger, but slowly and deliberately. They wanted his money, his stability, his dignity. They'd learn what it meant to take from a man who'd fought for every scrap he had. Martin Knox would burn their world to the ground and walk away without looking back. The diner sat on the outskirts of town, a chrome and neon relic from the 50s that served the best hash browns in 3 counties. Martin arrived early, claiming their usual booth in the back corner with sight lines to both exits. Old habits. Wyatt Langston pushed through the door at exactly noon, his military punctuality unchanged despite years of civilian life. He spotted Martin immediately, his broad shoulders and close-crop hair making him stand out among the Thanksgiving weekend families. Several patrons, the type who thought tattoos indicated character, avoided eye contact as Wyatt passed. "You look like hell," Wyatt said by way of greeting, sliding into the booth across from Martin. "Feel worse," Martin replied, pushing a mug of black coffee toward his friend. Wyatt studied Martin's face. They'd met in 10th grade, when Martin had transferred schools after his mother's death. Wyatt, already 6 feet tall and built like a linebacker, had found Martin behind the gym, systematically dismantling 3 seniors who decided the new kid needed initiation. Wyatt hadn't stepped in. He'd just watched, then offered Martin a bandage for his split knuckles afterward. They'd been friends ever since. "What happened?" Wyatt asked after the waitress had taken their orders and moved out of earshot. Martin laid it out in precise, unemotional terms. Laney's departure, the money, Arden's presence, the Cayman Islands. When he finished, Wyatt's face had darkened to a dangerous shade. "Tell me who and where, and it's handled," Wyatt said, voice deadly quiet. "Not yet." Martin leaned forward. "I want them to suffer." "What's the play?" "First, I need you to run background on Clint Marrow. Martin slid a napkin across the table with details written in his neat block handwriting. Full workup. I know he's been in trouble before. Find the paper trail. What about Laney? I've got her covered. I need eyes in the Caymans, though. Wyatt nodded. I've got a buddy from the Marines who works security for a resort down there. He owes me. Good. Martin sipped his coffee. I also need to know what Arden's hiding. She's in this deeper than she's letting on. How long have you got before they realize you're onto them? Couple of days, maybe. Arden's watching me, but she thinks I'm in shock, playing along until I figure out what to do. Martin's lips curved in a cold smile. She thinks I'll be reasonable. File for divorce. Split assets. Wyatt snorted. She doesn't know you very well. Nobody does. Except you. Their food arrived steak and eggs for Wyatt. Nothing for Martin. He hadn't had an appetite since finding Laney's note. Wyatt dug in with the efficiency of a man who'd learned to eat when food was available, regardless of hunger. You're going to need legal help, Wyatt said between bites. My sister's firm has a shark who handles high-asset divorces. Very discreet. Set it up, Martin agreed. I also need information on Caribbean banking laws. Planning a trip? Maybe. Depends what you find. Martin stared out the window at the gray November sky. I built everything I have from nothing, Wyatt. Lived in my car for 6 months after Mom died. Worked 2 jobs through college. Never took a handout. I know, brother. Wyatt's voice softened slightly, the only person Martin allowed to see past his walls. They think they can take it. Walk away with my life's work. Martin turned back, his eyes cold. I won't just get my money back. I'm going to take everything they have. Everything they care about. Wyatt nodded slowly. I'm with you. All the way. It could get ugly. Usually does. Wyatt finished his steak and pushed the plate aside. What about your job? Told them I'm taking personal leave. Family emergency. Smart. Keep it vague. Wyatt pulled out his wallet and dropped cash on the table for the meal. I'll make some calls today. Have preliminary info by tomorrow. Martin stood, extending his hand. Wyatt ignored it and pulled him into a brief, hard embrace instead. We'll fix this, Wyatt promised. Just like senior year. Senior year. When Martin's alcoholic father had returned, demanding money, threatening violence. Martin and Wyatt had ensured he never came back. Never spoke of it afterward. But it hung between them the knowledge that they were capable of whatever needed to be done. One more thing, Martin said as they walked to the parking lot. Check out Raina Fallon, Arden's biological daughter. Apparently, they're estranged. You thinking ally, I'm thinking leverage. Wyatt nodded, unlocking his truck. I'll be in touch. Martin watched him drive away, then sat in his own vehicle for several minutes, staring at nothing. The cold fury that had sustained him since yesterday was solidifying into something harder, more focused. A plan was forming, piece by piece, that he pulled out his phone, his regular one, and saw 3 missed calls from an international number. Laney, most likely, checking to see if he discovered the theft yet. Trying to gauge his reaction. He deleted the notifications without listening to the messages. Let her wonder. Let her worry. The silence would tell her more than any words could. Martin returned home to find Arden in the kitchen, talking intently on her phone. She startled when she saw him, quickly ending the call with a terse, I'll handle it. Problem? Martin asked, setting down grocery bags on the counter. Nothing important. Arden smoothed her already perfect hair. Just some business with my financial advisor. On Thanksgiving weekend? Dedicated service. I pay well for convenience. Arden eyed the grocery bags. Planning to stay a while. It's my house. Martin began unpacking the bags. I thought I'd make dinner. Real dinner, not catered. How domestic. Martin ignored the jab, methodically storing the groceries. You're welcome to join me. Or not. Your choice. What were you doing today? Arden's tone aimed for casual interest, but missed. Errands. Thinking. Martin turned to face her. I've decided you're right. Wariness crept into Arden's expression. About. Moving on. Filing for divorce. Being sensible. He shrugged. Why fight it? If Laney wants out, she can have out. Relief flickered across Arden's face before she controlled it. That's very mature of you, Martin. Life's too short for revenge. He smiled, the expression not reaching his eyes. I've already called my bank to arrange the paperwork. Should be all set by Monday. What paperwork? The wariness returned. Removing Laney from our joint accounts. Standard procedure for divorce. Martin turned back to the groceries. They'll need her signature, of course, but that can come later through the lawyers. Arden's phone chimed with a text. She glanced down, and Martin watched her complexion pale. Problem? He asked again. No. Arden's voice was tight. If you'll excuse me, I need to make another call. She left the kitchen, already dialing. Martin waited until she was upstairs before pulling out his own phone and texting Wyatt. First move made. How fast can your bank contact work? The response came seconds later. Already done. Cards frozen by end of day. Accounts flagged by Monday morning. Martin smiled, a real one this time, though it held no warmth. He'd called his bank that morning, explaining that he suspected fraud on his accounts. The bank's fraud department had been very interested in the international transfers, especially when Martin mentioned potential identity theft. By the time he'd finished his conversation with the fraud investigator, a hold had been placed on all joint credit cards pending verification. Laney would discover her cards declined within hours if she tried to use them. The real crunch would come Monday when the bank froze the accounts that had received the stolen funds. Martin had no intention of pressing charges, not yet, just creating panic. His phone rang, the same international number from before. This time, Martin answered. Hello. He kept his voice neutral, as if he had no idea who was calling. Martin. Laney's voice, tight with controlled anger. We need to talk. Laney, this is a surprise. He leaned against the counter. I thought you were on a cruise. A pause. Who told you that? Your note. The one you left with your mother. Stepmom. Laney corrected automatically. Look, I can explain everything. I'm sure you can. You're very good at explanations. My card was just declined at the hotel. What did you do? Martin kept his tone conversational. I reported potential fraud on our accounts. Someone made a large, unauthorized transfer. The bank thought it best to freeze everything until they can investigate. You know damn well I made that transfer. Laney hissed. Did you? That's strange, since it required my signature, which I certainly didn't provide. Another pause, longer this time. Martin, please. Don't make this difficult. Difficult? Martin's voice remained calm. I'm just following proper procedures for fraud protection. Any husband would do the same. This is about Clint, isn't it? You're punishing me. Who's Clint? He could practically hear her jaw clenching. You know who he is. Ah, your ex. The one mentioned in your note. Martin examined his fingernails. The cruise must be nice this time of year. There's no cruise. I'm in. She stopped herself. Yes? You're where exactly? It doesn't matter. What matters is you're being vindictive and childish. Says the woman who stole $250,000 and ran off with another man. Martin's voice hardened for the first time, leaving only a note and her stepmother behind. I was going to call you. When? After the money cleared? After you'd set up your new life with my savings? It's not like that, isn't it? Martin's tone cooled again. Doesn't matter now anyway. The bank's involved. They take fraud very seriously. You're threatening me? Disbelief colored her voice. Not at all. Just stating facts. Fraudulent transfers, forged signatures. These are criminal matters, Laney. You wouldn't dare. But uncertainty had crept into her voice. You're right. I probably wouldn't. Martin smiled into the phone. Not if things were handled reasonably. What does that mean? It means I'll expect the money returned to my account by Monday. All of it. Then we can discuss divorce terms like adults. Martin, that's my offer. Take it or deal with the fraud investigation. Martin's voice was silk over steel. Your choice. He ended the call before she could respond, then turned off his phone completely. Let her stew. Let her panic. Let her call back again and again to emptiness. From upstairs came the sound of Arden's voice, sharp with agitation though the words were indistinct. Martin moved silently to the bottom of the stairs, listening. He knows more than he's letting on, Arden was saying. Yes, I'm sure. No, I don't think he suspects that. Of course I'm handling it. Don't tell her anything yet. Yes, I know what's at stake. Martin retreated to the kitchen before she could discover him. The pieces were falling into place. Arden wasn't just an inconvenient mother-in-law caught in the crossfire. She was an active participant, which meant she had something to lose. Sunday morning arrived with a thunderstorm that matched Martin's mood. He'd spent the night reviewing old emails and text messages, looking for patterns he'd missed. There were plenty meetings Laney had accidentally scheduled when Clint would be present, unexplained expenses that now made sense, phone calls that ended abruptly when Martin entered the room he'd been blind, or perhaps he hadn't wanted to see. Either way, the picture was clear now. Arden appeared in the kitchen as Martin was making coffee, dressed in a silk robe that probably cost more than most people's rent. "You're still here," Martin observed, not bothering to mask his disappointment. Waiting out the storm. Arden glanced at the window where rain lashed against the glass. "Though, I meant the metaphorical one as well." Martin poured coffee into 2 mugs. "Storm's just beginning. It doesn't have to be." Arden accepted the offered mug. "We could resolve this quietly. We, you and I." She stirred a spoonful of sugar into her coffee. "We're both reasonable people, aren't we?" Martin leaned against the counter, watching her. "What do you want, Arden?" "The same thing you do. A clean resolution." She sipped her coffee, grimaced, and added more sugar. "Laney called me last night. She was quite upset." "I imagine so. Fraud investigations can be stressful." "Is that really necessary?" "The legal threats. Stealing is illegal. Should I ignore that?" Arden waved her hand dismissively. "It's a misunderstanding between husband and wife. These things happen." "A $250,000 misunderstanding?" Martin shook his head. "That's some marriage counseling bill. She's willing to compromise." Arden set down her mug. "Return half the money. Split the house proceeds when it sells. Clean break." "Half? She takes half my money after stealing it?" Martin almost laughed. "That's not compromise. That's highway robbery with better PR. Be reasonable, Martin." "I am being reasonable. I want what's mine. All of it." Arden studied him, head tilted slightly. "Perhaps we could reach a separate arrangement. You and I." "What kind of arrangement?" She moved closer, her expensive perfume filling the space between them. "I have considerable influence in this town. Connections your construction business could benefit from. My business does fine. It could do better." Arden's voice softened, taking on a tone Martin had never heard from her before. "Much better, with the right introductions." She placed a hand on his arm, fingers lightly tracing his bicep through his shirt. "I've always admired your work ethic, Martin. Your determination. So different from the men in my social circle." Martin looked down at her hand, then back to her face. "Are you hitting on me, Arden?" She didn't flinch. "I'm suggesting a mutually beneficial arrangement. You keep the house. I help grow your business. We both get what we want. And what do you get? Beyond the satisfaction of helping family." Her smile was practiced, seductive. "Let's just say I enjoy the company of a man who knows the value of hard work." Martin didn't move away. Instead, he lowered his voice to match hers. "And what about Laney's money? The theft? Water under the bridge? She keeps what she has. You keep what you have. Everyone moves on. That's simple. That's simple." Arden's hand moved to his chest. "We could discuss details over dinner. I know a discreet place." Martin caught her wrist, gently but firmly removing her hand. "Let me get this straight. You're suggesting I forget that your stepdaughter stole from me, accept half losses on money that's rightfully mine, and sleep with you as some sort of consolation prize." Color rose in Arden's cheeks. "I wouldn't have put it so crudely." "How would you put it?" "A fresh start. For both of us." Martin released her wrist and stepped back. "I don't need a fresh start, Arden. And I don't make deals with people who think I can be manipulated with sex and empty promises." Arden's expression hardened. "You're making a mistake. Wouldn't be my first." Martin picked up his coffee. "But at least it's mine to make. You think you know what's happening, but you don't." Arden's voice turned cold. "You have no idea what Laney is capable of when she doesn't get her way." "Actually, I'm getting a pretty clear picture." Martin headed for the door. "I'm going out. Don't wait up. This isn't over, Martin." He paused in the doorway. "No, it's not. But we'll be soon." Martin grabbed his keys and jacket, stepping out into the pouring rain without looking back. Once in his truck, he pulled out his phone and dialed Wyatt. "I need that information on Raina Fallon now," he said without preamble. "And bring your recording equipment when you come." Arden Holloway had just shown her hand. Now it was time to play his. The address Wyatt had provided led Martin to a converted warehouse on the industrial side of town. The building's brick exterior had been painted with a mural of swirling galaxies, and a discreet sign identified it as Stellar Studio. Through the large windows, Martin could see photography equipment and backdrops that a bell jingled as he pushed open the door. The space inside was larger than it appeared from outside, with high ceilings and various photography stations set up throughout. Music played softly from hidden speakers, something alternative with female vocals and a steady bass line. "Be right with you," called a voice from the back. Martin waited, hands in his pockets, examining the photos displayed on the walls. They were good artistic without being pretentious, a mix of portraits and landscapes that shared a distinctive style. "Sorry about that. How can I help you?" Martin turned to find a woman in her late 20s regarding him with professional curiosity. Her hair was shaved on one side, the rest falling in dark waves past her shoulder. Multiple earrings lined one ear, and a small nose stud caught the light. Despite the edgy appearance, her eyes were sharp, intelligent. "Raina Fallon?" Martin asked. Her expression cooled instantly. "Who's asking?" "Martin Knox." Recognition flickered in her eyes. "Laney's husband. You know who I am. I make it my business to know my mother's connections." Raina crossed her arms. "Though we don't exactly exchange Christmas cards. I need to talk to you." "About Arden." Raina studied him for a long moment, then nodded toward the back. "Coffee? I was just making some." Martin followed her through the studio to a small kitchen area tucked behind a partition. Raina poured 2 mugs from French press and handed one to Martin without asking how he took it. "So," she said, leaning against the counter, "what brings Laney's better half to my humble studio?" "I'm not sure I'm her better half anymore." Raina's eyebrows rose. "Trouble in paradise?" She left, took a significant amount of money with her. Raina didn't seem surprised, and ran off with Clint Marrow. Raina snorted. "Of course. Mother's little pet project." Martin noted the bitter tone. "You know him?" "I know of him. Arden's been funding his business ventures for years." Raina made air quotes around the words. "Though I always suspected there was more to that relationship than financial advising." "There was." Martin sipped his coffee. Figured. Raina shook her head. "So why come to me?" "I haven't spoken to Arden in 3 years. I need information. About an inheritance dispute." Raina stiffened. "Who told you about that?" "Does it matter?" "I know Arden cut you off. I want to know why." "That's personal." "So is having my wife steal $250,000 and run off with another man," Martin countered, "while leaving her mother to play mind games with me." "Stepmom," Raina corrected automatically, echoing Laney's earlier distinction. "Right." Raina stared into her coffee for a long moment before speaking. "My father, Arden's first husband, left a trust fund for me. Sizable one. Arden was the trustee until I turned 25. Let me guess. When you turned 25, the money was gone." "Not gone. Reallocated." Bitterness crept back into Raina's voice. She'd used it as collateral for her own investments. When I demanded answers, she claimed business losses had depleted the fund. "Did you believe her? What do you think?" Raina set down her mug with a sharp click. "I threatened legal action. She threatened to destroy my reputation and business. We reached an impasse. You backed down. I bided my time." Raina fixed him with a hard stare. "Why are you really here, Martin? What do you want from me?" Martin held her gaze. "An ally. Against Arden." Raina laughed, the sound sharp-edged. "Get in line." "I'm not in line. I'm at the front." Something in his tone made Raina study him more carefully. "You're planning something. I'm executing something. Arden, Laney, and Clint took what was mine. I intend to return the favor." "How?" "Thoroughly." Martin finished his coffee. "I have resources. Information. What I don't have is insider knowledge of Arden's weaknesses. And you think I'll just hand that over because we're both on Arden's shit list?" "No. I think you'll help because you want justice as much as I do." Martin placed his mug in the sink. "And because I can help you get your trust fund back." Raina's eyes narrowed. "How?" "I have recordings. Arden trying to seduce me in exchange for helping hide Laney's theft." Martin pulled out his phone, queued up the recording Wyatt had helped him make that morning, and played it that Arden's voice filled the kitchen. "I've always admired your work ethic, Martin. Your determination. So different from the men in my social circle." Raina's expression darkened as she listened to the conversation. When it ended, she looked up at Martin with new respect. You came prepared. I always do. Martin put the phone away. There's more where that came from. Enough to prove fraud, conspiracy, and probably a dozen other charges. But I don't want Arden in jail. What do you want? I want her ruined. Financially, socially, completely. Just like she tried to do to you. Just like she helped do to me. Raina was silent for a long moment, weighing his words. Then she held out her hand. I'm in, but I want my trust fund back. With interest. Martin shook her hand. Deal. So what's the plan? First, I need everything you have on Arden's finances. Bank accounts, investments, properties, especially properties in other names. Raina smiled for the first time, a sharp, predatory expression that reminded Martin they were more alike than different. When do we start? We already have. Martin checked his watch. Can you be at my house at 7 p.m.? Arden's throwing a Thanksgiving gala tonight, a belated one for appearance's sake. I think it's time she introduced her long-lost daughter to society. Don't you? Raina's smile widened. I'll bring my camera. For memories. As Martin left the studio, his phone buzzed with a text from Wyatt. Found something big on Clint. Arrest record in Florida. Domestic violence charge from 2019. Ex-girlfriend dropped charges, but police reports exist. Martin typed back, get copies. We moved tonight. By the time Martin returned home, Arden had transformed the house. Caterers bustled in the kitchen, florists arranged elaborate centerpieces in the dining room, and a string quartet was setting up in the living room. Arden herself directed it all with military precision, tablet in hand as she checked items off a digital list. There you are. She spotted Martin by the door. Your tuxedo is laid out upstairs. Guests arrive at 8. Martin raised an eyebrow. You've been busy. Someone had to salvage Thanksgiving. Arden barely glanced at him, focused on her tablet. The Merriweathers confirmed, along with the Davenports and Judge Colson. 24 guests total. Sounds cozy. It's strategic. These people have influence, Martin. Showing a united front will quell any rumors about Laney's absence. United front? Martin almost laughed. Is that what we're doing? Arden finally looked up, her eyes cold. For tonight, yes. Whatever disagreement we had this morning is on hold. These people are important to me, to us. To you, Martin corrected. I couldn't care less what Judge Colson thinks about my marriage. Well, you should. His wife chairs the committee that approves municipal construction contracts. Martin understood then. This wasn't about appearances or Thanksgiving or family. This was Arden's power base, the connections she leveraged to maintain her position in society. People who could hurt Martin professionally if he didn't play along. Fine, he said, decision made. I'll be the dutiful son-in-law. One night only. Relief flickered across Arden's face. Thank you. Your tux. I have my own. Martin headed for the stairs. I'll be ready. In the guest room, Martin found Wyatt waiting, laptop open on the bed. He looked up as Martin entered, then resumed typing. Security system's a joke, Wyatt said by way of greeting. 4-digit code hasn't been changed in years. Arden's not big on digital security. Martin locked the door behind him. What did you find? Clint Merrow's a piece of work. Wyatt turned the laptop to show a police report. Domestic violence arrest in 2019. Girlfriend recanted, but the initial statement is detailed. Broken arm, concussion. Martin scanned the report, committing details to memory. Send this to everyone on tonight's guest list. Anonymously. Already set up. Scheduled for 9 p.m. Right in the middle of your fancy party. Wyatt closed the laptop. What else? I need you to make a call to a Detective Wilson in Miami. Numbers on my phone. Tell him Martin Knox is calling in his favor, the one from the Hurricane Relief Fund. Ask him to put out an alert for Clint Merrow. Possible fraud investigation. Wyatt nodded, making notes. That'll put him in the system. Flags will go up if he tries to leave the Caymans. Exactly. Martin checked his watch. I need to get ready. Stay upstairs, monitor everything. Raina will be here at 7, bring her up the back stairs. You trust her? About as much as she trusts me. Enough for tonight. Wyatt nodded. What about Laney? She's been blowing up your other phone. Let her. Martin began pulling his tuxedo from the closet. The more panicked she gets, the better. By 7:30, Martin stood in the foyer, adjusting his cufflinks as Arden fussed with last-minute details. He'd chosen his best tuxedo, the one that emphasized his broad shoulders and athletic build. Next to Arden in her designer gown, they looked like the perfect power couple, exactly the image she wanted to project. At T7:45, the doorbell rang. Arden frowned. That's too early. No one should be here until 8. I'll get it. Martin moved to the door before she could object. Raina stood on the porch, stunning in a deep emerald gown that hugged her curves. Her hair was styled elegantly, the shaved side less noticeable, and she'd replaced her nose stud with a tiny diamond. Only the multiple earrings remained as evidence of her usual style. Martin, she smiled, leaning in to kiss his cheek. Thank you for the invitation. Before Martin could respond, Arden appeared behind him, her face a mask of shock. Raina, what are you doing here? Mother. Raina's smile turned glacial. Surprised to see me? This is a private event. Arden hissed, composure slipping. Is it? Martin invited me. Raina stepped past Martin into the foyer, looking around with exaggerated appreciation. Lovely decorations. So predictable. Martin closed the door, enjoying Arden's momentary loss of control. I thought it was time I met the rest of the family. We should talk about this, Arden said through clenched teeth. In private. No need. Raina handed her wrap to Martin. I'm sure your guests will be arriving soon. We wouldn't want to make a scene, would we? Arden's expression promised retribution, but the doorbell rang again before she could respond. She smoothed her features into a society smile and turned to greet the first official guests. The next hour passed in a blur of introductions and small talk. Martin played his role perfectly charming, attentive, the successful businessman who'd overcome humble beginnings. When asked about Lainey, he smoothly explained she was visiting family on the West Coast, a story Arden had clearly prepared. Raina worked the room independently, reconnecting with people she'd known before her estrangement from Arden. Martin noticed the curious glances, the whispered conversations when both women were in view. Exactly as planned at the T8:55, Martin excused himself and slipped upstairs to check on Wyatt. Everything set? He asked, closing the bedroom door. Wyatt nodded, fingers flying over the keyboard. Email blast ready. 5 minutes. Also got a text from my contact in the Caymans. Your wife and lover boy try to make a withdrawal from one of the new accounts. Denied. Perfect timing. Martin checked his watch. As soon as the emails go out, make the call to Detective Wilson. Already did. APB is active as of an hour ago. Wyatt gave a grim smile. Your boy Clint has an outstanding warrant in Georgia, too. Passing bad checks. Make sure that information finds its way to the Cayman authorities. On it. Martin rejoined the party just as Arden was preparing to make a toast. She stood at the head of the dining table, champagne glass raised, looking every inch the society matron. Friends, thank you for joining us for this belated Thanksgiving celebration. Though my stepdaughter couldn't be with us. The synchronized chime of multiple phones interrupted her. Around the room, guests pulled out devices, expressions of confusion turning to shock as they read the incoming emails. Judge Colson was the first to react, his face reddening as he looked from his phone to Arden. Is this true? Clint Merrow has a domestic violence record. Arden faltered, champagne glass wavering. I don't know what you're talking about. This police report. Mrs. Davenport held up her phone. It says Clint Merrow broke his girlfriend's arm in 2019. The same Clint Merrow who's been managing your investments. All eyes turned to Arden, whose complexion had gone ashen. There must be some mistake. No mistake. Martin stepped forward, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent room. The same Clint Merrow who's currently in the Cayman Islands with my wife, attempting to set up accounts with stolen funds. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Arden's glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the hardwood floor. Martin, she hissed. What are you doing? Telling the truth. He turned to address the stunned guests. My wife Lainey forged my signature to transfer $250,000 to offshore accounts. She and Clint Merrow, Arden's business associate, and apparently more planned this for months. That's absurd. Arden sputtered. How dare you? I have the bank records. Martin's voice remained calm, reasonable. and recordings of conversations confirming the conspiracy. From across the room, Raina moved to stand beside Martin. It's true. My mother has been funding Clint's schemes for years, just like she embezzled my trust fund. The room erupted in murmurs. Arden looked wildly from face to face, finding no allies. This is slander. I'll sue you both. Please do. Martin smiled coldly. Discovery would be fascinating. Martin's phone buzzed in his pocket. He checked at a text from Wyatt. Clint arrested at Grand Cayman Airport, attempting to flee after cards declined. Laney stranded. The party disintegrated rapidly after the revelations. Guests made excuses and departed, leaving only Martin, Raina, and a seething Arden in the wreckage of her social triumph. Caterers worked silently in the background, packing up untouched food. You've destroyed me, Arden said when the last guest had gone, voice shaking with fury. Years of connections, relationships gone. Not my trust fund, Raina countered. Like Martin's savings. You don't understand what you've done. Arden sank into a dining chair, suddenly looking every one of her years. The implications, I understand perfectly. Martin dismissed the remaining caterers with a generous tip, waiting until they'd left before continuing. You, Laney, and Clint conspired to steal my money. When that fell apart, you tried to salvage what you could through manipulation. It wasn't like that. Arden's voice had lost its imperious edge. Laney was unhappy. She wanted out. I was trying to help my daughter. Stepdaughter, Raina corrected pointedly. Martin crossed to the bar and poured 3 fingers of scotch. Funny thing about family. The legal definitions matter. Arden's head snapped up. What does that mean? It means I've been doing some research. Martin sipped his drink. About Laney's father's will. About guardianship. That's none of your business. Actually, it is. Martin set down his glass. Laney's father named her aunt his sister as her legal guardian in the event of his death. Not you. Color drained from Arden's face. How did you? I have resources. Martin glanced at Raina, who nodded confirmation. The point is, you were never Laney's legal guardian, which means the provisions in her father's were regarding the house. This house never applied to you. That's ridiculous. I've lived here, as a guest. Am I sufferance? Martin's voice hardened. The house is mine, legally, morally, completely. You have no claim to it, now or ever. Arden's hands trembled as she clutched the edge of the table. You can't prove any of this. Actually, Raina said, pulling papers from her clutch, we can. Certified copies of the will, the guardianship papers, and an affidavit from Aunt Helen confirming she never transferred guardianship to you. Helen wouldn't dare, Arden whispered. She already has. Raina spread the documents on the table. Turns out she's been waiting years for someone to ask the right questions. Arden stared at the papers, then at Martin and Raina. For a moment, she seemed to shrink further, defeated. Then her spine straightened, and the familiar cold calculation returned to her eyes. Fine, take the house. I have other resources. Not anymore. Martin nodded to Raina, who tapped something on her phone, but Arden's phone chimed with an incoming email. She pulled it from her evening bag, face paling as she read. What have you done? Her voice was barely audible. Frozen your accounts. Martin's tone was conversational. All of them, including the ones in the Caymans, Luxembourg, and Singapore. You can't. I can when there's evidence of fraud. Martin finished his scotch. The same evidence I gave to the FBI an hour ago. You're bluffing. Am I? Martin held her gaze. Check your accounts. Arden's fingers trembled as she navigated her banking app. Her expression told Martin everything he needed to know. This is illegal, she whispered. So is what you did to me. And to Raina. Martin took the papers from the table. You have until morning to pack your things and leave. After that, I changed the locks. Where am I supposed to go? For the first time, genuine fear entered Arden's voice. Not my problem. Martin turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. Clint's been arrested in the Caymans. Outstanding warrants in 2 states. Laney's stranded with no access to funds. You're enjoying this. Arden's accusation held no strength. Yes, Martin admitted. I am. He left her sitting alone in the dining room, surrounded by the remains of her ruined party. Raina followed him to the foyer. That was impressive, she said quietly. Just the beginning. Martin handed her an envelope. Your trust fund documentation. Use it to file a claim against her frozen assets. You'll have priority as a family member. Raina accepted the envelope with a bemused expression. You really thought of everything. I had to. Martin opened the front door for her. They took everything from me. It was only fair to return the favor. After Raina left, Martin climbed the stairs to find Wyatt still monitoring the fallout. Clint's in custody, Wyatt confirmed. Lainey's been calling nonstop. Hotel kicked her out when the card declined again. Where is she now? Embassy. Trying to arrange emergency travel funds. Wyatt closed the laptop. You want me to stick around? Make sure Arden leaves quietly? Martin shook his head. I can handle Arden. Go home, get some rest. After Wyatt departed, Martin stood at the bedroom window, watching the last of the catering vans drive away. His phone buzzed again, Lainey, again. This time, he answered. Martin, please, she sobbed immediately. I'm stranded. They've arrested Clint. I have nowhere to go. Sounds like a personal problem, he replied evenly. Don't be cruel. I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary, Lainey. What you did was a calculated betrayal. I'll come home, she pleaded. We can work this out. I'll get therapy, whatever you want. What I want, Martin said slowly, is for you to understand exactly what you've lost. Not just me or the money, but everything you took for granted. I understand. Please. No, you don't. Not yet. Martin watched a fallen leaf skitter across the lawn below, driven by the November wind. But you will. He ended the call and turned off the phone completely. Downstairs, he could hear Arden moving around, opening and closing drawers, beginning the process of dismantling her life. Martin felt no pity, no remorse. Only the cold satisfaction of justice served out a week past. Martin returned to work, declining to explain his wife's absence beyond a vague reference to family matters. Arden had left the house as instructed, taking only personal items. Martin had inventoried everything of value beforehand to ensure nothing disappeared. Wyatt checked in daily, updating Martin on the fallout. Clint remained in custody, fighting extradition. The FBI had launched a formal investigation into Arden's finances, freezing additional accounts and properties. Lainey had managed to secure emergency funds from the embassy, but remained in the Caymans. Unable to access any of the stolen money, Martin's house felt different with them gone lighter somehow, as if a weight had been lifted. He slept in the master bedroom again, the bedding replaced, the closet purged of Lainey's remaining clothes. That on Saturday morning, Martin was in the backyard splitting firewood when Wyatt's truck pulled into the driveway. His friend approached with purposeful strides, expression serious. We've got a situation, Wyatt said without preamble. Lainey's back. Commercial flight, landed an hour ago. She took a taxi here. Martin set down the axe, wiping sweat from his brow. How do you know? I've been monitoring her passport activity. Got an alert when she cleared customs. Resourceful. I have friends in useful places. Wyatt glanced toward the front of the house. What do you want to do? Martin considered for a moment. Let her come. I've been expecting this. You want me to stick around? No need. Martin picked up the split logs, stacking them neatly by the back door. This is between me and her. Wyatt looked unconvinced but nodded. I'll be a phone call away. After Wyatt left, Martin showered and dressed in jeans and a Henley casual weekend clothes, then made coffee and waited in the kitchen. The doorbell rang at precisely 10:15. Through the peephole, he saw Lainey disheveled, wearing wrinkled clothes, dark circles under her eyes. Her normally perfect hair hung limp around her face. She looked like she'd aged years in a week. Martin opened the door but remained in the threshold, blocking entry. Martin, Lainey's voice cracked. Thank God. I've been trying to reach you for days. I've been busy. He didn't invite her in. Cleaning up your mess. I know, and I'm so sorry. Tears welled in her eyes. I made a terrible mistake. Clint, he manipulated me. Made me believe things that weren't true. Like what? That you were hiding money. That you didn't really love me. She reached for his arm, but Martin stepped back slightly, avoiding contact. I know now it was all lies. Convenient realization. Please, just let me explain. She glanced past him into the house. Can I come in? It's cold out here. Martin made No move to allow entry. Explain what? How you forged my signature. How you planned for months to steal from me. How you left me with your manipulative stepmother while you ran off with your ex. It wasn't like that. Laney's tears spilled over. Clint threatened me. Said if I didn't help him, he hurt you. Hurt us. Bullshit. Martin's blunt response seemed to shock her. You forget I've seen the text between you two. The hotel reservations. The business meetings that never happened. This wasn't a sudden decision, Laney. This was calculated. Martin, please. She was sobbing now, makeup running down her cheeks. I have nowhere else to go. Clint took everything. The money's gone. Not gone. Frozen. Along with Arden's accounts. Laney's eyes widened. What? What did you do? What needed to be done? Martin leaned against the doorframe. The FBI is very interested in money laundering schemes, it turns out, especially when they involve multiple countries. The FBI? Martin, you can't be serious. They'll put us in jail. Us? There's no us anymore, Laney. Martin's voice remained calm. Just you, Clint, and Arden. 3 conspirators who thought they could take what wasn't theirs. I'm your wife. In name only. Divorce papers are being filed Monday morning. Laney's sobs intensified. She dropped to her knees on the porch, clutching at the hem of his jeans. Please, I'm begging you. Don't do this. I'll do anything. I still love you. Martin looked down at her. This woman he'd once thought was his forever. He felt nothing, no anger, no pain, not even satisfaction at seeing her reduced to this state. Just a vast emptiness where love had once been. I don't forgive betrayal, Laney, he said quietly. I erase it. The front door opened wider, revealing Raina standing in the foyer. She'd been helping Martin catalog evidence for the FBI investigation all morning, sorting through financial records in the home office. Everything okay out here? She asked, though her tone suggested she knew exactly what was happening. That Laney's head snapped up, shock replacing desperation. What is she doing here? Working. Unlike some people. Raina crossed her arms, expression coolly neutral. You look terrible. This is my house. Laney spat, scrambling to her feet. You have no right. Actually, it's Martin's house, Raina corrected. Always has been. Your stepmother had no legal claim to it, which means neither do you. That's not true. My father's will named your Aunt Helen as your guardian, not Arden. Martin straightened. Another lie in a house built on them. Laney looked from Martin to Raina, realization dawning. You've been working together? For how long? Long enough. Martin stepped back. Goodbye, Laney. You can't just throw me out. Her voice rose, panic setting in. I have rights. Take it up with your lawyer. Martin began closing the door. I suggest finding one who specializes in fraud defense. Martin, please. I have nowhere to go. Should have thought of that before you left. Raina moved to stand beside Martin. Actions have consequences. As the door swung shut, Laney lunged forward, trying to force her way in. Raina blocked her with surprising strength, pushing her back onto the porch. Don't, Raina warned, voice hard. You've done enough damage. The door closed with finality, Laney's sobs muffled by the heavy wood. Martin engaged the deadbolt, then turned to find Raina watching him. You okay? She asked, genuine concern in her voice. Yeah. And surprisingly, he was. Let's get back to work. Through the window, they watched as Laney eventually gave up, dragging her suitcase down the driveway to wait at the curb, presumably for another taxi. The November wind whipped around her, scattering dead leaves at her feet. Martin turned away without a second glance. 2 days later, Martin sat in his lawyer's office, reviewing the divorce filing. The terms were non-negotiable. Laney would receive nothing beyond personal items that could be proven to be gifts or inheritance. His lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s with a reputation for ruthlessness, had approved the strategy, especially given the evidence of fraud. Once the FBI investigation concludes, we'll have even more leverage, she explained, tapping the thick folder of documentation. Impressive work gathering all this. I'm thorough, Martin replied, signing where indicated. Clearly, she gathered the papers. I'll file these today. Given the circumstances, we should be able to expedite the process. Martin's phone buzzed as he left the lawyer's office. An unlisted number. Hello, Martin. Arden's voice, tense and brittle. "We need to meet. I have nothing to say to you. You want to hear this? Trust me." The desperation in her tone was new. "Please. One meeting." Martin considered hanging up, but curiosity won out. "Where and when?" "The Riverview Hotel. Lobby bar. 1 hour. I'll give you 15 minutes. Not a second more." The Riverview Hotel stood on the outskirts of town, a once grand establishment, now faded into genteel decline. Martin arrived precisely on time to find Arden already seated in a corner booth, nursing what looked like a gin and tonic. She'd lost weight in the week since he'd seen her, her designer outfit hanging slightly loose on her frame. "Thank you for coming," she said as he slid into the seat across from her. Martin said nothing, simply waited. "I've been served with papers," Arden continued, voice low. "Federal investigation. Asset seizure. The works. Unfortunate. This has gone too far, Martin." She leaned forward, eyes intense. "We need to end this before everyone gets hurt. Everyone already is hurt. I'm not talking about feelings." Arden glanced around, then lowered her voice further. "I know things, Martin, about your past. Things that could ruin you if they came to light." Martin raised an eyebrow. "Is this a blackmail attempt?" "Because your timing could use work." "Not blackmail. A mutual ceasefire." Arden straightened. "I know about the incident with your father. Senior year." For the first time, Martin felt a flicker of unease. No one knew about that except Wyatt. His father's disappearance had been written off as another drunk abandoning his family. "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult my intelligence." Arden's confidence was returning. "I've had you investigated thoroughly. I know he threatened your mother before she died. I know he came back years later, demanding money. I know he was never seen again after confronting you and Wyatt." Martin kept his expression neutral. "Sounds like speculation. Maybe. But speculation becomes investigation very quickly when someone points the FBI in the right direction." Arden tapped her fingernails against her glass. "I'm offering you a deal. Call off the dogs. Let me keep what assets remain unfrozen. I'll sign whatever disclaimers you want regarding the house. In return, your secrets stay buried." Martin studied her for a long moment, then smiled slightly. "You know, I almost respect this. You've lost everything, and you're still fighting. Self-preservation is a powerful motivator. So is justice." Martin leaned back. "Go ahead, Arden. Tell your stories. Point fingers. Make accusations." Her eyes narrowed. "You're not taking this seriously." "Oh, I am. Very seriously." Martin's voice hardened. "But you've miscalculated again." "How so?" "I survived worse than your lies." Martin stood, towering over her. "I crawled out of poverty, built a life when everyone said I couldn't, and succeeded despite people like you looking down on me every step of the way. This isn't about class warfare, Martin. No, it's about consequences." He placed both hands on the table, leaning down to meet her eyes. "You helped steal from me. You tried to manipulate me. Now you're threatening me. 3 strikes, Arden. What does that mean?" "It means I'm done playing nice." Martin straightened. "Enjoy the rest of your drink. It might be the last one you have as a free woman for quite some time." As Martin walked away, his phone buzzed with a text from Wyatt. Done. "Press will have Arden's financial records by morning. Anonymous source." Martin smiled grimly as he exited the hotel. He hadn't been bluffing. Wyatt had been waiting for his signal. By tomorrow, every newspaper in the state would have evidence of Arden's financial crimes, not Martin's imagined ones. Her last weapon had just been turned against her. 3 months passed. Winter gave way to early spring, buds forming on the trees lining Martin's driveway. The house had transformed in that time. Laney's decorative touches replaced with simpler, more functional items. The formal dining room was now a home office. The sitting room, once showcasing Arden-approved furniture no one ever used, had become a comfortable space with well-worn leather chairs and bookshelves. Martin stood at the kitchen island, reviewing blueprints for a veterans housing project, his company's newest venture. The divorce had been finalized in record time, the judge unsympathetic to Laney's claims given the evidence of fraud. Clint had been extradited to face charges in Georgia and Florida, turning on Laney and Arden in exchange for a plea deal. Arden herself had fled the country one step ahead of federal agents, reportedly hiding in a non-extradition country. The stolen money had been recovered, most of it, anyway. Enough that Martin felt satisfied. The front door opened, and Raina's voice called out, "Delivery." She appeared in the kitchen doorway, carrying bags of groceries. Wyatt followed behind with more bags, the two of them bickering good-naturedly about the best route to the store. "Traffic on Main Street is always a nightmare on Saturdays," Raina was saying. "I told you to take the Parkway." "The Parkway adds 3 miles, Wyatt countered, setting his bags on the counter. "Inefficient, but faster overall. Quality over quantity." Raina began unpacking groceries with the familiarity of someone at home. "Martin, tell this stubborn man I'm right." Martin smiled, rolling up the blueprints. "I'm staying out of this one." "Coward," Raina teased, but her eyes were warm. Over the past months, their unlikely alliance had evolved into something more, not romance, but a kind of family. Raina had moved into the guest house behind the main property after her apartment lease ended, claiming it was temporary, though she'd since decorated the space thoroughly. Wyatt came by most evenings and weekends, the three of them sharing meals and companionable silences. Mail came, Wyatt said, tossing a stack of envelopes onto the counter. "Including this." He handed Martin a thick envelope bearing government seals. Martin opened it, scanning the contents quickly. "The shelter's approved," he announced. "Full funding." Raina's face lit up. "The veterans' housing? That's fantastic. Couldn't have done it without you two." Martin set the letter aside. "Your architectural designs made the difference, Raina." And Wyatt's security consultations addressed every concern they raised. "When do we break ground?" Wyatt asked, already reaching for the blueprints. "Next month. I'm donating half the value of this house to supplement the government funding." Raina paused in her unpacking. "Half? That's a lot, Martin." "It's fitting." Martin glanced around the kitchen, at the home that had once represented his dream of family with Lainey. This place was built on false promises. Time to create something real from it. Wyatt clapped him on the shoulder, a rare gesture of physical affection from the stoic ex-Marine. "Your mother would be proud." "She would." Martin nodded, throat unexpectedly tight. "She always said, build what lasts. People fail you, but what you create with your own hands stands longer than any promise." "Smart woman." Raina resumed unpacking groceries. "Which reminds me, I found something at that estate sale yesterday." "Wait here." She darted out to her car, returning moments later with a flat package wrapped in brown paper. "I saw this and thought of you," she said. Handing it to Martin, he unwrapped it to find a hand-carved wooden sign, the kind meant to hang beside a front door. It read simply, "Family chosen, not given." "It's perfect," Martin said quietly. Later that evening, the three of them sat on the back deck, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. A comfortable silence settled between them, broken only by the occasional comment or shared observation that Martin's phone buzzed. A text from an international number, his lawyer had traced it to a small island nation in the South Pacific. Lainey, trying again. He deleted it without reading the message, just as he had the dozen before it. Some things didn't deserve second chances. Some betrayals cut too deep for forgiveness. "You okay?" Raina asked, noticing his expression. "Fine." Martin pocketed the phone, just taking out the trash. Wyatt raised his beer in silent understanding. Raina nudged Martin's shoulder with her own, a gesture that had become familiar over the months, part support, part affection as twilight deepened into darkness. Martin thought about the journey that had brought him here. From the abandoned son determined to succeed despite everyone's expectations, to the betrayed husband who'd lost everything, to this moment sitting with two people who'd proven more loyal than blood. His mother had been right. People failed you, but what you built lasted. Sometimes what you built was a home. Sometimes it was justice. And sometimes, if you were lucky, it was family chosen, tested, and true. The burnt remnants of his old life had given way to something new, something better. From the ashes of November had come the promise of spring. Martin Knox watched the first stars appear in the darkening sky and smiled a real smile, reaching his eyes for the first time in months. The war was over. He had won. But more importantly, he had rebuilt.